All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We are thrilled to have you. We're seeing lots of folks in the chat. I'm seeing Madrid, Sicily, Vancouver, Miami, Arizona, Missouri. So tons of places. Please feel free to add where you're hailing us from in the chat. This morning, we are delighted to welcome you to our fourth webinar series this year, which is Tools for Interpreters. Today is our second webinar in this series, Preparation Strategies for Interpreters from Courtrooms to Conferences during and beyond COVID-19. As many of you already know, recordings of past webinars can be found on our Blue Horizon online learning platform at interpretertraining-online.com. In addition, you can find some information there on our upcoming webinars, including the next two webinars in this series on March 17th and March 31st. My name is Michelle Gallagher, and I'm the Managing Director of Cross Culture Communications, the only U.S. training agency for medical and community interpreting, and Blue Horizon, our online learning platform for our self-paced and live training programs. I will be your host for today's one-hour webinar as Marjorie Bancroft, our director, is off. Also with us today is my colleague, Andrew Hall. He is Cross Culture Communications Publications Manager. Andrew is managing the chat and will provide useful information in that area throughout the webinar. As we wait for everyone to come online, we'd like to start off with a poll from our presenter. Please take a few moments. I'm launching the poll right now. There are 3 questions in this poll. We will share the answers to this poll later on in the presentation when our presenter Jackie has kicked it off. So please take a moment to answer those questions as we continue with this brief introduction. Okay. While everyone, again, is joining us again this morning, good morning or good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're coming from, I'd first like to go over a few points. The webinar presentation will last from 40 to 45 minutes, followed by a 15 to 20-minute question and answer period, during which you can answer or you can ask our presenter questions. You're welcome to submit those questions during the webinar itself, but please do that through the question and answer or the Q&A feature in the webinar itself. That will be open. Use that feature, please, to submit your questions, and then we will be asking those questions to the presenter at the end of her presentation. For other comments or questions for us here at Cross Culture Communications, please use the chat feature instead. And if you want everyone to see your comments in the chat, please change your chat settings to all panelists and attendees. And if you want to stay on after our presenter leaves at the end of the hour to chat with Andrew and me, we'll be happy to answer your questions about both cross-culture communications and Blue Horizon. All right, for those of you just joining us, please take a moment to answer our presenters' 3, and I'm so sorry. Here we go. All right, now, of course, we can do the poll since I've just launched it. So please, for those of you just joining us and also those of you who have been listening for the last few minutes, our presenter has a 3-question poll. If you could please take a moment to answer that poll and submit your answers, and Jackie will be sharing those responses in a little bit. Okay, so we have that going right now. I do see the responses coming through. Thank you so much, everyone, for submitting your responses. Wonderful. All right, so just a few more points. Regarding continuing education, this webinar has been approved for CEUs for ATA, the American Translators Association, from CCHI, the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters, from IMIA, the International Medical Interpreters Association, and RID, the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf. 24 hours after this webinar, so tomorrow, Sunday, here on the Eastern Seaboard of the United States, but 24 hours after this webinar, attendees will be emailed a link to download a certificate of attendance and the presentation itself. Jackie, our presenter, has been kind enough to share her presentation, so you will receive a link to download a copy of that tomorrow. This email that you receive 24 hours after the webinar will also include instructions on how to request RID CEUs, which require a separate $20 CEU processing fee. Please keep in mind this webinar is free, so everyone can attend. You can get the certificate for free. Only in the case if you want RID CEUs, there is that separate $20 fee. Certificates are only available for attendees of the live session of this webinar. Now, without further ado, we'd like to begin our presentation, Preparation Strategies for Interpreters from Courtrooms to Conferences during and beyond COVID-19. We are delighted and honored to welcome today's presenter, interpreter, translator, and owner of Trans-Korean Services, Jackie No. Jackie, please take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Just want to let me know if you do. Great. Before I start, I think it would be helpful to know a little bit about who's here today, as well as our areas of expertise. I know the interpreter is working in a number of industries and a wide range of experience. So let's find out where we are all coming from. Thank you for participating in the poll. So I hope that everyone can see the poll on the screen as well as the PowerPoint. And I want to thank you for joining me. You're from everywhere. I was looking at the chat window, and I think the Tolosa is from farthest away, Kakuma Refuge Camp in Kenya. Thank you so much for joining, as well as Peru, Costa Rica, Spain, Puerto Rico, Italy, New Jersey, all of the United States. I'm not going to mention all the states, Toronto. So thank you so much for joining me. So as Michelle said, I'm going to share the results during my presentation. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No, I'm not imitating Jim Carrey from the movie. Again, thank you very much for joining me today. Several years ago, I was honored to do a talk at an ATA conference, ATA American Translators Association. The title of my presentation was, "Who is your client?" The theme was, who are we really working for when we interpret? Spoiler alert, everyone involved, the project manager, the language service provider, the assigning officer, the speaker, the listener, all very important people, as you all agree. But over time, my take on that has evolved. As an interpreter, my goal has always been to faithfully render the words and intent of the speaker and make them understandable to the listener. That has not changed. If I cannot achieve that basic function, I may as well not be an interpreter. But there are other considerations to think about as well, not the least of which is the continuation of my career. If I don't keep getting hired to interpret, my philosophy about interpreting will be irrelevant. While the speaker and the listener are paramount in my mind, it is rare that either one would be in a position to hire me for future assignments. The project manager or assigning officer may not even be aware of my performance unless something major is brought to their attention. And that's often only the problems. So, who is in the best position to know my job performance and help me get future referrals? My booth mate and colleagues. Just to be clear, for our purposes here today, anytime I mention booth mate, I mean virtual booth mate or any type of collaboration partner you may have, technicians, of course, too. I realize we don't always work in a booth. That's usually only for conferences or other large venues. In fact, currently and for the last year, 2020, I don't think many of us have even seen a physical interpreter booth. Conference, court, medical, administrative hearing interpreters. We do not operate in a vacuum. Please don't forget that we, sorry about that. So please don't forget about your coworkers. Think like a team member. Referrals from colleagues have been the bedrock of my business for over 35 years. And I would like to think I have helped many of them along the way as well. The best way I can think to elicit referrals is to be someone that my colleagues truly want to work with. I have observed that there are two types of interpreters: those who prepare for assignments and those who do not. Today, I'll share how I prepare for assignments to accommodate not only the speaker and the listener, but also the most important client in my career, you. Obviously, it's not enough to be bilingual. Each assignment presents different challenges. As I said, the subject matter can be quite diverse from diplomatic assignments. This was in Beijing for 6 party talks, so I had to study about nuclear weapon systems and sports. Here's the Olympic Games and futuristic cars, self-driving cars or autonomous driving cars. Here's race cars to film directors. I can do a little name drop here. I'm here with Bong Joon-ho before he won multiple Oscars for Parasite. Hope you all get to see it. We cannot possibly know terminology from every industry or professional discipline. So we prepare. We familiarize ourselves with the subject matter and create glossaries for each assignment. When we work in a booth or with a partner, we are a team. We either do well together or the whole booth looks bad. When we prepare, we do that as a team as well. We split the workload and then share with each other our notes, glossaries, and any translations of scripts from speakers. I not only share this information with my booth partner, but I share any relevant materials with my colleagues in the other language booths as well. Not just my partner. My aim is to make my colleagues' job much easier and make the entire team look and function at the highest level possible. By joining me today, you have already started preparing for your next interpretation assignment, and I thank you for that. With the genesis of remote interpreting due to COVID-19, you and your clients literally have the entire world as their marketplace. If you do not perform well due to lack of preparation, don't expect to get the next referral. In my case, even having more than 35 years of experience as an interpreter, I recently had to take a simultaneous interpretation assessment test to help to be considered as an interpreter for a certain event. Fortunately, the agency who contacted me provided reference materials to help prepare for the test. I spent more than 12 hours preparing for that 20-minute assessment. The agency, my client, was initially asked to provide 16 interpreters with 8 language booths, virtual booths, for a 1-hour event. After the test was given and reviewed by in-country bilingual staff, guess what? The agency was asked to provide only 3 language booths. My Korean boothmate and I were among those selected. If I didn't prepare, I would not have gotten the job. And even if I had, I don't believe it would have gone well. Let's look at the poll results. Michelle, can we share them, please?
All right, I've just ended the poll, Jackie,
Great. So
and
you had
here
a
they are.
wonderful. Oh, we had quite a bit of other, huh? So Arabic, thank you, Armenian. Oh, no Armenian. So about 50% Spanish, okay. And let's see, it's interesting. So we have a majority of medical interpreters, legal interpreters, some conference settings, and the experience. Okay, 1 to 5 years, wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle. So I am going to close the poll. And again, thank you very much for participating in the poll. So now I know a little bit about you. So who am I? This is just a little bit of my history. I went to UC Berkeley as an undergrad and graduate school of translation and interpretation, Miss. And then these are the organizations that I participated over the years. I was a part of a court interpreters advisory panel member, we call CIAP, and Northern California Translator Association, and you can see other ones here. So my recommendation, I strongly recommend that you do join some of this if you have not already. They are a great resource. And over the years, I also made wonderful friends through these organizations. All right. So here's what I would like to cover today. How to prepare for court and legal interpreting assignments. And I'm sure medical interpreters can adapt and apply some of the techniques that I'll be sharing with you. Then prepare for technical conference, and then working from home in the COVID and post-COVID era. And then we will have a Q&A. So I always give 100% at work, or try to. I'm sorry, but not like this. I saw this sign in a courthouse that I worked last week. Actually, it was an in-person assignment, and the courtroom clerk had this sign on the desk, so I thought it was kind of funny. But as a freelancer, we pretty much work 7/24, right? 24/7, 365 at any rate. So, okay, let's now start. So first, I'm going to start with a court assignment. Upon receipt of confirmation of an assignment from the court, I try to obtain the assignment details, such as the items that you see here in this slide. So I find the case number to be the most important one in here. And why do I say that? Because that's where my research starts normally. Also, with the remote court interpreting assignments, you need to prepare more, not less, because you can expect there will be sound quality issues from the courtroom, lawyer's office, lawyer's car, defendant's daughter's computer's mic. I mean, believe me, all over. And often it's the defendant is sitting in a car, in my case, and the daughter is sitting in the next to him, trying to show him or her how to participate in a remote court appearance. So sound quality is very bad. Better prepared you are, more complete information you have in your hand. I go to court websites such as this, let's see, last one, this one. So it's open to public. So it's from Northern California, County of Alameda. So you can search by case number or defendant's name, etc. I usually do it with the case number because defendants' names often have misspellings or typos and stuff. So or something like this, then you can find with the case number alone, you can find the case type. It can be civil, criminal, family, etc., and complaint type. So you're going to have the PowerPoint, so you don't need to take a picture or anything like that. And this is another county in Northern California, Sacramento. So again, I redact any identification information. So this is an example of criminal case details. It's a criminal case I was called to interpret not too long ago. All I had was the case number and the defendant's name. So with the case number, I was able to access these type of case details through the court's, as I said, public case access system. So here under charges, we know he's charged or she's charged with PC Penal Code 484A. So you can Google and find abundant information about that code. You can find the case type in this case, which is misdemeanor. It can be misdemeanor, infraction, or felony. And this shows the event type and event details. As you can see, this has plenty of information. I find this case history quite interesting. And sometimes in the uh, portal that the court interpreter coordinators provide also have a last interpreter, which can be also helpful. And I'll go talk about that a bit later. And so what can you do with the case number alone? With a case number and defendant's name, you can conduct research before appearing in court or deposition venues. For remote interpreting, as I said, it is crucial that you have access to documents and exhibits that will be read or referred to during the proceeding. When you appear, you can easily ask for a copy, but when you are doing a remote assignment, that is not feasible. So if it's a jury trial, excuse me, you should ask for jury instructions as soon as they become, I'm sorry, get some water here. This is another thing that I have. I have this spill-free water bottle whenever I interpret. So like I said, for remote, if it's a jury trial, you should always ask for jury instructions as soon as they become available, even if it's a draft version, which is much better than not having at all or obtaining the final clean version at the last minute. By knowing the charges in advance, you can start creating a glossary. For example, California Vehicle Code 23152, I'm sure a lot of them probably know already, and it'd be a 23152A, which is, it is unlawful for a person who is under the influence of any alcoholic beverage to drive a vehicle. And B would be, it is unlawful for a person who has 0.08% or more by weight of alcohol in his or her blood to drive a vehicle. And so, like I said, you can start researching. And then abbreviations can be very frustrating to me if I don't know what certain abbreviations stand for, because as they are unique to each courthouse or county, or in your case, some hospitals, some doctor's office, right? And they do not show up in a Google search most of the time. So be willing to ask whoever requested your service. When I receive an email request, that's the first thing I see. Are there any abbreviations or acronyms that I'm not familiar with? And then I send the email right away to the requester. So here are some examples of abbreviations that are difficult to research. So you just need to ask what they mean. Yeah, SS was the latest one that I didn't know is stood for spousal support. And there are many, many more. You just cannot simply Google. So the key is always ask. Um, One of my favorite radio show is Fresh Air with Terry Gross and PB and KQED. And she wrote a book some years ago, said, all I did was ask. So I often ask. So when I received a phone call from a local courthouse for a last minute remote interpreting assignment, no one told me that about which platform that it would be used or how to use it. The coordinator assumed I already knew. I failed to ask until I received the email confirmation 1 hour before. So I had a 1 hour to learn this platform that I had not even heard of just 1 hour ago. I managed to figure it out. Thank you, Google. So it is very important for you to know always ahead of time which platform you will use and ask for training if necessary. I always ask for dry run or test. And ask for any documents that will be read or explained by an attorney during the proceeding. So you must know about the case to know what to ask for, right? So if you know the last interpreter worked on the case, reach out to that interpreter to learn about the case. I always encourage court interpreter service coordinators to provide my contact information to the next interpreter if I'm unable to cover, so I can share what I learned about the case and glossary I created. Same goes for court or jury trials. If you have been doing a trial with a partner and you cannot continue or have a new partner, share the information you have. all names of all the parties, defendant, co-defendant, witnesses, district attorneys, public defenders, private counsels, judges, everything. And please connect the link provided to you from your client at least 24 hours before or as soon as possible before to make sure that link works without giving you any error messages. Recently, I had a conference and my partner um, uh, signed in the last minute, logged in last minute, as soon as when the meeting was about to begin, and it kept giving an error message. She kept opening the Word documents that she received, and it had the link connected, but when she clicked, it just would not go to the meeting site, right? So it turned out that she had to copy and paste, but she did not do that. So that's scary. So I got a, SOS message, Jackie, we cannot connect your partner. So we did all kinds of things anyway. So always make sure that you check the site before you actually your assignment begins. So there are many documents that you will be asked to render, called site translation, right? Lately, I was asked to render site translation like acknowledgement regarding limitations to confidentiality for mediations. So there are more documents because of remote assignments. And disclosure statements and instructions, I just listed here. Let's see what else would it be. So as a medical interpreter, I'm sure you would have to sign other similar forms. And the scripts is very important, traffic arraignment script and the waivers and rights, and then also copy of complaints. Often the judge asks, have you ever had a chance to read your complaints? Do you have any questions? So it's good to have that. And notice in motion, memorandum, declaration, and police report, very important. I already mentioned about jury instructions, probation report, and anything else that will help you become more competent. So let me briefly talk about video deposition or in-person deposition. Just like with any other assignment, information is key. The more your client can provide you, the less you need to search, the less research time. Find out whether it be remote or in-person. If remote, ask about not only the platform to be used, but also how exhibits or documents will be shared. They may be a secured internet link or sometimes software tool called Exhibit Share. And make sure they give you login access for any of the resources you will need. So during the deposition, not all attorneys would know how to share or how to access to exhibits or documents or the witness either, but you need to be able to see that. So make sure that you ask for the access login. And ask for deposition notice. It's also called the caption, and start creating glossary based on that caption or deposition notice. And also conduct a Google search for any media coverage with the names on the caption and the case information you're privy to. And this is another thing that I let the parties know, that anyone who speaks on the record must speak directly and clearly into a microphone. Otherwise, the interpreter might not be able to hear in order to render an accurate interpretation. It's kind of scary note, but so this is the deposition notice. So again, I redact any names of the parties. And another one. And with the deposition notice, let's see, I create glossary, and so this is the glossary that I create for a deposition or some court assignments and medical interpretation assignments. I do independent medical examinations or QME, qualified medical examinations, or AME, agreed medical examinations. So I also study, and this is the media coverage. I check newspaper articles or YouTube clip. And not just English, but I also check the ethnic media outlets. So this is from a Korean language newspaper. So, okay, now let's go to a conference. So perhaps the most important questions to address to your client or conference organizers are, what is the topic? Who are the speakers? And who is my partner? Who is my partner? For virtual conferences, it is crucial to communicate with your partner to determine how you two will work before the event. And after the discussion, I write an email such as this: I'm so and so, etc. And regarding the handover, dividing the workload, if you are interested and available, I would like to have a Zoom meeting, and then give different options of the communication apps: WhatsApp, FaceTime, Kakao Talk, chat window, FaceTime if you use iPhone. And then I propose the dates and times that I'm available. So then after the either Zoom meeting, I usually have a Zoom meeting nowadays because I like to meet in person, or at least see the face, then teleconference. And then after this Zoom meeting or teleconference, I create an interpreter schedule we agreed on and share with the host and technician. And it looks like this. So I put my partner's name and my name here, and the dates of the event and the length of the meeting. And then, so if my partner is based in East Coast, New York, Washington, D.C., etc., and I'm in California, so I'm in Pacific Standard Time. So I put the both of them, and it's very helpful. So the technicians knows who's interpreting. I mean, also let them know that this is Jackie No, and today I will start, or today my partner will start, and we will take turns every 15 minutes. So if there are any technical issues, they can find out where to go. And if the client provided a run-of show, which is really helpful, then my partner and I might divide the work by speaker or segment for a smooth transition. So here are some of the things to ask for: latest agenda, speaker list, attendee list, if available. I would ask attendee list if it's let's say, a press conference, and I'd like to know the list of interviewees and interviewers, like journalists and their affiliations, so that I can read the articles that these journalists wrote in the past about the topic, or even not about the topic, just to get to know them. And I ask for glossaries in either or both languages, English and or Korean in my case. But you'll most likely have to create your own. I always have to do that. I mean, a couple of times I worked for a Canadian government, and they were very kind enough to provide me both versions, English and Korean versions. And of course, PowerPoints or other presentation materials. And this is also very important information from previous conference, and whatever you can get. I mean, anything is better than nothing, right? So it's pretty straightforward. So we're gathering information here that will make us feel comfortable and competent. Unfortunately, often our clients are not willing to share or are unable to share due to company confidential information or security reasons. I'm sure that is the case with medical interpretation, with the HIPAA requirements, and also IT companies. They're very sensitive about their information. So then you must be creative to gather materials that will help you speak the language of the event speakers and attendees. Sometimes, however, I'm able to convince my clients to send me information by offering to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. So let's assume for now that all you have received so far is an event agenda, something like this one. How do you start doing your homework? This agenda shows a list of speakers I highlighted here. First, I would create one table of executive bios in alphabetical order with a detailed bio of each speaker. I also sometimes create a table of executive bios based on their hierarchy. And why do I do that? Because the more senior they are, the more their names will be mentioned during the event. How you create an executive bio is up to you. I'm just sharing what has been working for me. So let me show you what I have here. So I usually obtain the speaker's bios from sources like company websites or LinkedIn. Um, and when I do the medical interpreting assignments, I go to Google and I learn about the doctor that I'll be interpreting for, their specialties, if they have any articles they wrote, and etc. And then I create my own glossary based on that. And because there are so many proper nouns, and often these bios are read during the event very fast. So I make sure I create a bio and I have it display in both languages. So I might just have to read this when the speaker is reading the bio. And I think that LinkedIn is a great resource to find job titles for presenters who are not members of executive team in large enterprises. Usually I have been able to find most people under LinkedIn or Google. So you enter the name of the speaker and the company name on Google, voila. LinkedIn appears with individuals' pictures and job titles and their bios. Very, very, very useful. And then once I know the event name, I search for previous year's conferences on YouTube, company websites, or if speakers are somewhat well known in the field, TED Talks. And the speakers might quote from the Bible, Shakespeare, poems, sports terms, jargon, or quotations. So I try to learn everything I can about them. I watch their previous talks and practice interpreting to be familiar with their areas of expertise, favorite topics, speaking style, and pace, among others. So now I've created a table of executive bios in my working languages in the order of appearance in the program agenda. And I have noticed that some large corporations maintain multilingual websites. So when you prepare an executive bio like this one, always assume that the version in the original language, in my case, in English, is the most recent one, so if there are any discrepancies between the source language and target language, I often find that the translated target language has not been updated. So I do, however, use the translated version to obtain the company specific terminology in the target language. Next, I start creating a glossary for that particular event in alphabetical order. Let's see, this one must have been for IT. So it's not just word for word. I often put a phrase like always connected digital world, application consumption model, or disaggregated software infrastructure, etc. And this is glossary by presentation in order of appearance. So after that, if the client provided me with the PowerPoint presentations or talking points, I create a separate glossary for that particular presentation in the order of appearance. I also create one in alphabetical order in case the speaker does not follow the presentation provided to me in advance. So I'm ready for however they make their presentation. And then at the end, I consolidate all the individual presentation glossaries in one place so I can have quick access at any time I need it. And while creating glossaries, I create a list of acronyms. and abbreviations I encounter during my research. They're also very helpful in understanding the relevant materials. In the defense and IT, information technology industries, for example, there are sometimes more acronyms spoken than ordinary words. But all industries have their own acronyms, abbreviations, and jargon. So unless you are already expert in the field you are interpreting, having a list is invaluable. Once I have a list of acronyms I feel are most relevant to the event, I share the list with my colleagues of all languages working at the same event. When I was teaching a Korean English legal interpretation course at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles Extension, long time ago, I gave each student different homework to do. And whether they wanted to do or not, they all had to share their respective homework. The quality of the homework was much better, and they were all motivated to contribute to the class. I try to strongly encourage a mindset of sharing the knowledge and not hoarding. Try to see the big picture. If we all do a good job, we all look good to the client. If some of us don't do a good job, we all look bad. So I'm not going to read this, but so I share the table of executive bios with my colleagues who work on the same event with an email, something like this. Here's another thing I do. After I find out some of the presentations will be presented in Korean members of delegation. After obtaining approval from my client that it is okay for me to contact the speakers in Korea, I sent them an email in Korean introducing myself and how crucial it is for interpreters to be fully prepared to make sure their message is relayed accurately. I write this email in Korean and English and always CC my client. When I receive the speaker's presentations or speeches in Korean, I sent them an email thanking them for sending and prudently ask if they would permit me to share the English translation of their speeches or presentations with my colleagues at the event. I also informed them if they allow me to share, I will translate their speeches and presentations into English and would be happy to send them my English translation files. For some of the Korean speakers, having the English translation of their speeches and presentations had been an incentive for them to allow me to share with my colleagues. If they do not allow, there is nothing I can do. But I think it is very important to get permission before sharing anything. For me, it's very important to let people know what I need in order to render the best possible interpretation. So the first one is to my colleagues, and this one is to my point of contact, the person who requested my services. So I said, thank you very much for forwarding the Korean materials. If they receive the Korean materials from the members of Korean delegation, then I say, I have been translating them to prepare for the assignment as a courtesy to the other interpreters on this assignment. Please feel free to forward the translation to them, as I'm sure they would appreciate it. I will send more as I complete the translation. As you know, when people have speech to read, they usually read very fast, much faster than when they speak without the speech, without the script, I mean. So this is basically how I organize my interpretation assignment folder. In this folder, you might have contracts or POs or other paperwork related interpretation assignments. And inside the folder, I create another folder specifically for interpretation assignments. So I also do translation. So I have translation assignments as well. And as soon as I receive any information or files from my clients, I rename them to be consistent with my naming convention and put them in this folder. A name of folder for each assignment is comprised of year, month, company name, event name, and venue. Here's an example. So 2019, or let's see here, 2016 November, XYZ Network Sales Kickoff. That's the name of event and where it held, San Francisco. And then next, I create as many folders as I need for that event. One of the folders would have the event schedule, a table of executive bios, glossary for the event. So this is for pretty much for the entire event, right? And then on the same level, I would have folders for day one, day two, and so forth. In the day one folder, I would have PowerPoint or any reference files for that day. File names comprised of date, time, first name, initial, like here, and last name of the presenter, and presentation title. Example, Tuesday, 11:15 a.m., K. Davis, Digital Enterprise, etc. And this is EN, meaning this is in English. And I try to have very specific detailed file names. So when the agenda is revised, I can easily find the correct file. Also, more often than not, the name appearing on the first page of PowerPoint is not the presenter. So I put a shortened title of presentation. For example, the full title of digital enterprise presentation is How to Protect the Digital Enterprise. Also, when I insert Korean translation onto a PowerPoint file provided by the client, I add KO, which is my shorthand for Korean at the end of file name and vice versa. Pretty straightforward, right? I have glossaries both in English and an alphabetical order and Korean alphabetical order. So I can easily refer to for English to Korean or Korean to English interpretation. So let's go to the working from home now. So I'm not going to read this. So I'm sure by now you are quite familiar with what's needed in the working from home. So let's see, what do I want to? So once you accept the conference interpretation assignment, that will be done remotely. Then you know how to operate RSI platform software of your client's choice. So what do you do now? Then this is what I do. We talked about compiling all the information. And in doing all that, because we're working remotely, there are a few other things to consider. One, contact your booth partner to discuss handover. I already talked about that, how and when, and decide how you will divide the workload, decide the communication methods you will use between each other during the event. So I think I can go to the next one. And hopefully your client is planning on having a dry run or rehearsal. If not, strongly suggest it. In my experience, it is almost always a problem when they don't do it. And then also emphasize why it is very important for speakers to have to wear headset with mic. So this is the kind of thing I write. One more thing I would like to point out is the importance of speakers using headsets. And you can just read this with external mics. So remote interpretation, I say, it's already very taxing physically than in person. And why is that? Because the large part of the reason is the low sound quality that results from participants or speakers speaking into their computer mics. I mean, that sounds might be okay for regular meetings, but it causes interpreters to strain our ears, possibly to the point of affecting performance. So I always send this out. And then what I also do is asking the conference organizers or facilitators to strongly encourage panelists to wear the headset. I also give them like a link, like a inexpensive Logitech headset link. So they can maybe look into that. And this is the minimum requirement I don't need to go over that. I'm sure you're very familiar by now because we've been doing this almost a year, sadly. And if I can just talk about, so you need a USB headset. Yes, it's all here. And this is very, very important. Close all programs you are using. So right now I turned off everything on my computer except the Zoom and my PowerPoint. That's it. And do not multitask. It's limit distractions. Okay, I'm almost done. And be on time. This one should be obvious. If you're not, you'll probably not get many assignments. And please mute your mic when you are not interpreting and be mindful of background noise. Today it's webinar, so it's okay. But when you have a Zoom meeting, make sure you turn off your mic and always check your audio settings before logging in. Make sure the RSI platform is actually using your headset mic, not the built-in laptop or your webcam mic. Also, at this time, make sure the RSI platform's speaker settings are using your headset and not any other speakers that may be built in or connected to your computer. And not that you do this, but don't plug in your backup headset. Just have that in reserve should you ever have the need. Like if your first set is broken or something, okay? And in the rare event you are asked to be on camera, position your camera properly with your face centered. I believe I heard like your eye level should be about from the 30%, top 30% of the screen. And if you might be required to be on camera, dress professionally. I'm sure you, I don't need to say that because you'd do that if you were at a physical event, right? And I've almost never been asked to be on camera at conferences, but I am expected to do so during depositions and court appearances. So this is my like a Zoom uniform in a way. So I don't have to think about what to wear, like um, Apple's the Steve Jobs. He was always wearing the black turtleneck, and this is my Zoom uniform. And so limit distractions. I wrote it down here, like checking emails, even if your partner is interpreting, don't do that. And do not multitask. Interpreting requires a lot of concentration. Don't overtask your cognitive load. So I'm going to share my RSI setup before we go into a Q&A. So I have desktop computer with Windows 10 Pro. Memory RAM has 16 gigabyte, and you can read this. And I have Audio Technica BPHS1 broadcast stereo headset with Steinberg. This is the CI2 USB audio interface. This is what I use to adjust the volume. And I can also set the ratio between my voice and also the speaker's voice. So when I don't want to hear myself at all, I can put all the way to the left. And then when I just want to hear the speaker the other way. So and I also use Sennheiser SC665 USB. That's the for RSI platform. So Audio Technica I use for any Zoom, BlueJeans, Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting, WebEx, and then the Sennheiser. This is my Sennheiser. I'm using it. I use for RSI platforms normally. And then I have two Logitech tech headsets as backup. And then I use external webcam. This is here, and then this is the ring light. And let's see, what else do I use? And I use the Access laptop for research, and also I can use this with the RSI platform if need be, just in and let's see. And then I use the iPad with noise canceling earbuds. It's both noise canceling earbuds. And sometimes I use this as a secondary listening device to hear my partner, or in some cases, the relay interpretation. And miscellaneous optional items, I have headset stand right here and small desk clock. right here, so I can always tell what time. And water bottle, that one spill, this is it. So I can do this and I won't spill. And I also have signs saying right here, always check audio settings. And then in my outside of my office, my home office, I have a sign that says a live meeting in progress, do not enter. So it's not in the picture, but, and then I mentioned the ring light, and then I mentioned webcam. And I also have, after I took this picture, I also got a dual monitor arm to save real estate on my desk. So I get more space on my desk. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. So now I want to take your questions. Actually, that's my favorite part. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint and start answering your questions. And I can stay after 9:30. I have another meeting in half
Sure.
an hour. So
Sure. Jackie, thank you so much. That was wonderful. That was extremely dense, lots of information. And we got really, we're getting really good comments in the chat and also some great
thank you.
questions. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much. That was
My
wonderful.
pleasure.
Yeah, I'm going to group together a few questions that we received quite a number of hits on.
Okay.
One of them was on preparation time, or I
Right.
should say, several folks actually asked about preparation time. Do
Mm-hmm.
you have a ratio, for example? If the assignment is 2 hours long, do you set aside a certain amount of time to prepare for that assignment? And also came up quite a few questions. How do you bill? How do you
Mm-hmm.
account for that preparation time
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
assignments?
Sure. So for preparation time, depending on the topic, of course, if I'm familiar with that topic, then it would take me less time to prepare. But I usually do 1-to-2 ratio. So let's say it's a 2-hour event, I might spend anywhere from 4 to 8 hour of preparation time. And in terms of preparation time pay, I have hourly rate or I have a set rate. So it all depends on the event and depends on the topic. So I have done a lot of IT information technology related conference. So that does not require a lot of preparation time. So I might not charge those IT events, but I might charge for if I'm interpreting for Alzheimer disease or something very technical, medical or pharmaceutical, then yes, it all depends. And I discussed that before I signed the contract. So it's case by case, really.
Of course, always get it in writing,
Yes,
correct?
always, always.
That is
No text messages, no voicemail messages.
this is the way a professional interpreter operates, correct? That is wonderful, Jackie. Thank you. Quite a few questions about glossaries. So,
Mm.
what kind of software do you use to create your
Okay.
glossaries? And then when you
Uh-huh.
get to the booth, for
Mm.
example, for a conference interpreting assignment,
Mm-mm.
are you using paper glossaries? Or are you using them on some kind of device in order to access them during the assignment?
Excellent question. Thank you. Um, I don't particularly have any software that I use to create glossary, but I use a lot of Korean English medical dictionary, computer software, computer dictionary, or gaming industry dictionary. So I use a lot of specialized dictionaries online, and I also still have a lot of paper dictionaries. My Korean dictionary is like 5,000 pages, and English same, 6,000 pages, and I have a very specialized industry related dictionaries like construction, like I said, computer or economy, etc. And so in the site, what I do is, I have a very terminology that I think it will come out very frequently. Then I put it on my, maybe I place on the desk, or I might even put it on the near where I can easily see. And then I use a paper glossary usually rather than
So you had a paper glossary
computer.
with you in the assignment.
Yes. So
Okay.
it might be, and then it's like I said, I have two sets. One's alphabetical order for all, and then another one by presentation. So presentation might be in the order of both order of appearance of the PowerPoint presentation as well as the alphabetical order. So
Excellent. Yeah, there were quite a few questions about that, Jackie. So
yeah.
thank you. Thank you for that information and
Oh, you're
insight.
welcome.
Now, in terms of glossaries, moving on to resources in general,
Mm-hmm.
with legal interpreting assignments, court
Yes.
interpreting assignments, we had a couple of questions regarding confidentiality.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
One of those questions was, for example, in cases or assignments such as protective orders
mm-hmm,
or in
mm-hmm,
juvenile court, how do
mm-hmm.
you obtain that information ahead of time, or how do you prepare for the assignment, let's say?
That's an excellent question. I asked the court interpreter service coordinator that please let me have the information from the courtroom clerk. So when I so when we have the, let's see, the Zoom meeting or BlueJeans or Microsoft Teams, as soon as I log in, usually 15, 20 minutes before the court starting time, and I introduce myself. This is Jackie No, Korean Language Court Service, Court Interpreter Certification Number, blah, blah, blah. We don't oath and file interpreting for the case name. And so I have that ready, so I can just easily copy and paste to that chat window. And then I just send a private email to the courtroom clerk saying, if there will be any documents will be read, I need to have access. So please email me. I will delete as soon as possible, as soon as the assignment is over. So, so I make sure that I'm not going to, share that with anybody. Rest assured that it's confidential. So, and same thing with when they have mediation and arbitration. So.
Exactly. Good. Yeah. Preparing as much as possible, right, with the resources available.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Excellent.
But the public access sites that have been very helpful usually because
Yes.
court service coordinators don't always provide all the information that I ask for. So that's
Yes.
what
Yes,
yeah.
indeed. Another question as well relating to confidentiality and resources, Jackie.
Mm-hmm,
We have a comment here saying that the attendee loves the idea of sharing work and resources
mm-hmm,
with colleagues,
mm-hmm.
but aren't there confidentiality issues with sharing details about cases with other interpreters? So if you're interpreting for a
Um,
court case, you're collaborating with other interpreters, does confidentiality come into it?
um, I do not think so. I mean, if the particular interpreter is working on the same case, we have to abide by the same code of ethics, the confidentiality. So if we are helping each other to do our job better and making sure that they are not going to share with any other interpreters, then I think it is okay.
Excellent. And a follow up on confidentiality. What do you do with your notes after interpreting in a confidential
I
setting?
I shred. I have
There
a
we go.
very powerful shredder. So
A
right
good
away.
investment.
Yeah. I delete the emails, anything about that, and I shred right away.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Perfect, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Yes, part of
Ex-
the necessary equipment for an interpreter, right?
yes, it's
Having that
one of
powerful
my
shredder.
toys. I love shredding, actually. I happen to love it. So if you have any, just send me my way.
Exactly, perfect. Now, going back to preparation time, because a lot of folks had
Yes.
questions about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have adequate time to prepare for
Mm-hmm.
for an assignment, any ideas, any sort
Yeah,
of tricks
I have
and
to.
techniques?
Yes, I have been doing this weekly conference for some time about COVID-19, and again, it's for journalists, press conference, and everything I come in last minute. So I've been kind of cheating. I use Microsoft Bing or Google Translate for some words so that, I mean, I first read English very quickly and I highlight any like speakers' names or the topics or their expertise or their affiliations, maybe United Nations World hunger program or world food program, etc. So I quickly highlight it, and then I go to internet to find out that Korean translation or Korean equivalents of that, and then I plug that some text into those machine translation tools, and then just I don't read that, of course. It's garbage or it's not really usable. So that's what I've been doing. I beg them to do it. I mean, it happened yesterday actually. My assignment was at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I got the material like about an hour before, and this was a speaker from India, and 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 it was PowerPoint, and luckily I had 1 hour, so I studied as much as I could, and that was a lifesaver because unfortunately the speaker happened to have a very thick accent that I could not really understand. So I had to rely on the PowerPoint. I was like hanging on to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that is great. Just to deal with reality, right?
Yes, that's
That-
the reality. Yeah, just do whatever you can. But again, anything is better than nothing. So
exactly.
beg,
That is
implore
wonderful.
them. You need
Yes.
this.
Yes, yes, yes. Just to wrap up, a couple of questions about your tech setup. So you
Hmm.
shared a bit of information there.
Yes.
If you could just state again for us what kind of console or what kind of setup you're using,
Okay.
and basically the important parts, I guess, that go into that RSI, that remote simultaneous
Yes.
interpreting
Hmm.
setup.
Hmm. Yes. So some RSI platforms, I can use my interface, the one I showed you, that's the CI2 Steinberg. And like I said, I like that because it has the volume control, the knob, which is more close to the actual boost setting than controlling the volume from the computer screen. So that's what I use. And um, so only two, I believe, two RSA platforms that do not they said that if I use this, my favorite Audio Technica set, they get mono rather than studio. So as soon as I heard that, I quickly put on my Sennheiser. So then they had no issues. Um, but all the other, if it's not client is not using RSI platform and just the Zoom, BlueJeans, then I use this interface. Um, and let's see. And then I mean, do you have any specific questions other than
Basically, the
console?
console, the setup.
Yeah,
That those
yeah.
were
So
quite a few questions that folks
right.
had.
So
Yeah.
having a dual screen, I use one for just the setup so I don't inadvertently click anything. So on the right hand side is might have my PowerPoint presentation with my translation in it, the Korean translation, whereas the one that the screen, the speaker shares only English. And then my presentation might have some notes at the bottom. And then I also use it for Google search or, dictionaries, etc. So
Excellent.
I strongly recommend the dual monitor minimum. And then I
Okay.
use iPad and the laptop computer as well. So
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, because we had quite a few questions on the dual monitor setup.
yes, yes, yes,
And it's good to hear that for you,
yeah.
in your opinion, it is
Mhm.
essential to be able to
Yes,
do the
and
job well.
and also like I said, I do translation, so I would have a source language document on one screen and then the target language document on the other when I do edit and proofread, and that helps greatly, saves
That
time.
is, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd imagine. So
yeah.
have it separate
Yeah, and
in
if I
front of
want to
you.
also look at the third document, then I take out my laptop computer. So,
That
yeah,
is
yeah,
wonderful.
if there are any documents with the track changes and stuff.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So Jackie, what we're going to
Mhm.
suggest is that because we do still have a lot of questions,
I see. Okay.
so if people have questions, please submit it to our email address and we will forward them on to Jackie. So
Okay, that's
Andrew is putting
fine.
that in the chat. It is
Okay. Okay.
info@cultureandlanguage.net.
Okay.
We'll be happy to forward them on to Jackie because Jackie, that was a great presentation.
Oh,
Lots of
thank you.
information,
Thank
lots of
you.
questions as well. So if folks
I
still
hope
have
I didn't go too fast. I was looking at my
okay.
desk clock and saying, "Oh, am I running behind here?"
That is fine. That is absolutely wonderful.
Okay.
So thank you to everyone who attended. Andrew and I will stay on for just a few more moments in case anyone has questions about CEUs, certificates, the like. But Jackie, we wanted to thank you again.
My
Wonderful
pleasure.
presentation. Thank you for
Thank you
joining
for
us
having
early.
me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we will be in touch then. But thank you so much,
Okay.
Jackie. And we hope you enjoy
Thank
the
you.
rest of your weekend. And thank
All
you to
right.
everyone for attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Andrew, for your help.
Thank
Bye.
you. All right. Bye bye. Okay, so we will stay on just for a few more moments in case anyone has information. But as Andrew's been putting in the chat, if you have additional questions, please send them to us at info@cultureandlanguage.net. We'll be happy to forward them on to Jackie, or if it's something we feel we can answer, we'll give you a response as well. We had over 400 attendees for this lovely presentation by Jackie No, based in California. We really appreciate all of your time. And that email will go out, be sent out 24 hours after this webinar. In that email, you will have a link to the certificate, which you can download, and that certificate will also have the CEUs on it. That email will also have a link to the presentation that Jackie has so generously shared with us that we're going to share with all of you, and you can download it in that email that again will be sent out 24 hours after this webinar, i.e. you should receive that tomorrow. Okay, I think we will wrap that up. I'm seeing lots of friendly faces here in the chat. So thank you everyone for attending. We really enjoyed having you here on a Saturday, and we wish you all the best and a wonderful rest of the weekend. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.